Hello everyone, I'm Joe Cerletti, and today for my speech I'm going to be discussing the Groom Lake facility, better known as Area 51. According to CNN, Area 51 is one of the most highly secure, secretive bases in the country, if not the planet. And in some exciting news, I've added a slideshow, and at the end of the slideshow, you will see some brand new photos of Area 51, which came out April 5th, 2020. These are the newest photos to be released of the base in over half a decade. Some of the main points I'd like to discuss today are the technology that has been, is being, and is rumored to be developed at Area 51. According to the History Channel, some of the aircraft that have been developed at Area 51 include the U-2 spy plane, the F-117 Nighthawk stealth attack airplane, the SR-71 Blackbird stealth airplane, and even the stealth Black Hawk helicopters that were used in the Bin Laden raid. Now, interestingly enough, getting to Bin Laden, one of my basketball coaches back in probably 2002, 2003, was a senior special agent for the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Now, as I said, I've been studying, or I haven't mentioned this, I've been studying the base for over 20 years. And even back then, I was fascinated by the base, and I kept pestering him, hey, what's going on at Area 51? Every time I would bring it up, his body language would change, and he would just get very annoyed, and he would say, Joe, I can't talk about that. Please don't ask me again. But of course, you know, being a kid, I would ask him repeatedly. One day after church, I went to Catholic school, and we were walking outside the church, and I said, hey, where's Bin Laden? Just to see what he said. And he just flat out told me, oh, he's somewhere in Pakistan. Now, 9 years later, that's indeed where Bin Laden was. At the end of the basketball season, I probably asked him for the 100th time what's going on at Area 51, and he was probably so overjoyed that the season was over and that he wouldn't have to answer me again. He said, listen, Joe, I can't tell you, but if I did tell you, you wouldn't be able to sleep well the rest of your life. Now remember, he told me where Bin Laden was, and that proved to be true 9 years later. Who's to say that he wasn't telling the truth about the Area 51 stuff, what he was kind of hinting at? Some of the things I'd like to discuss for my thesis are the black budget, the billions and maybe hundreds of billions of dollars that we've poured into the base since it's been around, what's going on at the base. Getting into my preview, the government has been in denial, or was in denial, that the base existed for over 60 years until a group of employees were exposed to toxic substances and chemicals at the base. Some of them died, and many of them got very sick, and a lawsuit was brought forward against the base, and the government had to admit in open court that the base actually existed after 60 years of lies and just flat out denial that the base was even in existence, when obviously it was. We could see the base, you know, you could drive up to the base, and the government lied that it was even there. So finally they admitted it was real just very recently, within the past decade. Second thing I'd like to get in with my preview is security at the base. The security at the base is absolutely phenomenal. It's quite impressive, actually. In order to even get to the border of the base as a regular person like me and you have to drive on a dirt road, off-road. They can see you coming for miles because there's motion sensors on the side of the road. Past the border, it's littered with motion sensors. There's cameras on all the hills that have infrared capabilities so they can see you at nighttime. There's drones flying overhead to secure the inner and outer perimeter of the base with infrared on them as well so they can see you at nighttime. And there is ex-military, highly trained contractors that are heavily armed, and they are authorized to use lethal force if you're caught inside the base. There is one man who snuck in the base successfully in the early 90s. His name was Jerry Freeman. He had no interest in any of the UFO stuff that's rumored to be going on in there. He actually was a historian, and his only interest was researching the 49ers that passed through the area. Jerry requested to the military and the government numerous times through official channels to legally be allowed on the area so that he could just try to find evidence of the 49ers passing through the area. He was denied again and again and again. So he took matters into his own hands, and he actually snuck in to the Papoose Lake area of Area 51, which is over the hill from the base. It's still in the secure area. but that is where it's rumored where the extraterrestrial stuff is going on. Again, he had no interest in any of this. He spent about 8 days evading security inside the inner perimeter of Papoose Lake. And in the daytime, he could see heavily armed military guys, the contractors, the security guys walking around or driving by and all that sort of stuff. But at nighttime, the dry lake bed would light up. And he said that lights would come out of the mountain as if there was doorways inside the mountain, as if there was a base inside the mountain. And that at times the ground would start shaking very violently as if something was going on underground. Residents in nearby Rachel, which is the nearest town, Area 51, have reported similar things. Jerry actually died of cancer 2 years later, and it's theorized that he was exposed to some sort of toxic stuff going on there. The third thing I'd like to discuss is Bob Lazar, who was an employee at Area 51. He went through an extensive background check before he got hired there, and how he actually got hired there was by a man named Dr. Edward Teller, who was one of the fathers of the atomic bomb, and he was a bigwig over at Livermore Labs. Bob met with Dr. Teller, and Teller was impressed by him, and he offered him a job at Livermore. Bob said, "No, I'd actually like to work in Nevada." And Dr. Teller said, "Oh, I think I have a very interesting job for you there." Long story short, Bob got the job, and he was flown out to Area 51 on a secret shuttle that flies every hour from Nevada. To this day, you can see it at the airport in Las Vegas. It's a white airplane with a red stripe across it, and it's called Janet Airways, which supposedly means just another non-existent terminal. And they fly people to and from the base every day, every hour nearly. So Bob gets to the base, and they take him on a blacked out bus to Papoose Lake from Area 51. And he claims that there was extraterrestrial craft inside bunkers. And inside the craft, it was built for something about 3.5 feet tall, so he kind of had to crouch to walk around. Long story short, their goal was to back engineer or figure out how we could adapt the craft's technology to our technology. Bob couldn't keep his excitement in for more than a few months, and he told some of his friends, John Lear and Gene Huff, about what was going on at the base. And he took them out to the Black Mailbox, which was a place overlooking the mountains surrounding Area 51. It wasn't inside Area 51, it was outside of it, but it was still an area where security could get to you, even though you were legally on legal lands. And at this Black Mailbox, at a specific time, every time Bob would take them there, flying saucers would appear over the mountain, and the test flights of the saucers would begin, and they would defy the law of physics. Bob was caught by security with Gene Huff and John Lear there one night, and instead of facing the consequences of the oath he swore to keep his secret and all the papers he had to sign, he decided to go public, and this is going to be my third source, with a man named George Knapp, who was a investigative reporter for KLAS. He's still a reporter there in Las Vegas. He's highly respected. And getting into my tie back, the government lied about this base since the very beginning. And Bob has withstood the test of time. His story has withstood the test of time. The government's story has not withstood the test of time. Bob's has. Recently, there was a documentary that came out about Bob on Netflix. And the FBI actually raided his residence and his business during the filming of this documentary. My question is after 31 years, why would the FBI and the federal government care so much about Bob Lazar if his story was total, baloney, if he was just full of it? Why would the FBI care 31 years later? Significance, the base is still growing, as you'll see in my slideshow. It's highly secure, and they may be harboring UFOs there. And if they are harboring UFOs there, I believe that's the biggest story in human history. Even if they're not there anymore, but they were at one point, it still drives the point home. Like, this is one of the biggest stories in human history. And in finality, this is an amazing place. It's a lot of fun to think about, imagine about, and talk about. And I actually have a hand-sketched drawing from Bob of one of the UFOs that he worked on at Area 51. And please watch my slideshow. I think you'll really enjoy it. Thank you.